What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 373 of the Established Run NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher, here with Drew Dinkmeyer to talk the NBA playoffs, and we're getting close to the end. We've had one series end, and we're getting awfully close here. Some teams facing elimination. Should be a pretty exciting weekend coming up here. Dink, how's it going?
It's good. Yeah, three game sixes on tap, and breaking down kind of what happened in game five of those series today is the goal. And it's always fun when you've got, four series in total and three of them are still going to game six. That's a good round of the playoffs. We were excited about this round of the playoffs coming in. This is sort of what we expected. You had Boston sweeping Cleveland. I had Boston in five, so I get the exacto for the first series that's done. You get another win on your scorecard, hit your -2.5s on Boston, all your alt lines on Boston there. And we both had, I believe we both had OKC in 7. We both had Denver in 7. And I think we both had Knicks in 5. So the OG Anunoby injury, it might have been Knicks in 5 and me Knicks in 6. I don't know. We were around there. But the OG Anunoby injury, throwing that one off. So we'll see. We're still live to potentially keep the perfect bracket going here. But game fives were really interesting. I thought one of the big themes to game fives was a return to health from star players, which has been a key point of emphasis during this course of the second round with Jamal Murray with the Nuggets. And then we got Jalen Brunson looking healthier for the Knicks. And we got Luka Doncic last night looking a little bit healthier for Dallas.
Yeah, that was huge. We'll definitely talk about Luka for sure. But let's start with the Denver Nuggets getting just a absolute legendary status game out of Nikola Jokic. So, that's it. A little bit of I think the Mike Conley thing was big, but let's just start with Jokic first on just how that third quarter. I think he scored or assisted on almost every point. Just go ahead, and we could talk about how great Jokic is, but just incredible game from him to will his team to victory.
Yeah, it's just another in a long list of kind of epic playoff performances from Nikola Jokic, who is starting to put together one of the greatest playoff resumes of all time in terms of his performance. If you look at his performance from a points per game basis, from a shooting basis, he's basically held up or been better in the playoffs than he's been in the regular season, which is really tough to do because in the playoffs, you're facing the best teams. You're having teams game plan specifically for you. And in the case of Nikola Jokic, we're now on year 3 of teams specifically game planning for him in the playoffs, and they haven't come up with answers yet. So it looked like maybe Minnesota had some answers in games 1 and 2 when Nikola struggled a little bit from the field. Rudy Gobert was really impactful. Naz Reid and Karl-Anthony Towns were playing really strong defense. But games 3, 4, and 5, he looked unaffected by what has been the best defense in the league this entire year. And the one thing I want to really lean into on this Jokic stuff is, first and foremost, there are way too many people, and I know this is annoying both you and I, on the internet, picking apart Rudy Gobert. And I get it. Rudy Gobert has done a lot of weird things. He did the microphone thing with COVID. He's complained about the league supposedly fixing games 3 or 4 times now. He's generally not an easy guy to root for. I get it. We're all excited to pile on Rudy Gobert whenever we can. But if you're piling on Rudy Gobert for his defensive performance against Nikola Jokic, and you're saying this is our 3-time defensive player of the year, Nikola's done this to everybody. Mm-hmm. He did it to Anthony Davis. He did it to Bam Adebayo. He did it to Draymond Green. Draymond Green's been having a lot of fun and a lot of laughs on the TNT set at the expense of Rudy Gobert. May I remind you, Draymond, 31, 13, and 6. That's what Nikola Jokic put up on you in the Golden State Warriors in a 5-game series that you guys won over the Denver Nuggets in that 5-game series, in part because the starting backcourt for Nikola Jokic in that series was Will Barton and Austin Rivers, and then the reserve was Facundo Campazzo. It wasn't really a playoff caliber team, and he put up 31, 13, and 6 on you over 5 games. So let's just all calm down on the idea of this isn't your defensive player of the year. And what I want to highlight on that as well is it speaks to how much offense matters more than defense in the league. Mm-hmm. And you and I both are people who really value defense and really value players who bring it on both ends of the floor. But I think sometimes we get a little too excited about players that can do it on both ends of the floor. Like these conversations of who's the best two-way player in the league. Mm-hmm. It's really dumb. because everybody's playing both ways all the time. And if you're way better at offense than everybody else, which Nikola Jokic is, you're the best two-way player in the league. Doesn't matter if you're not as good at defense. Doesn't matter because you're so good at offense. And some of this conversation that's been blasting Rudy Gobert is because people like to pick on Rudy Gobert and they want to mock that he's not worth all the accolades he's got on the Defensive Player of the Year, the trade that he got, which, by the way, that trade seems to work out okay for Minnesota. Like it seemed they seem to have built a pretty good team despite trading all those picks, giving Rudy Gobert the big contract. And Rudy Gobert is not the typical player who earns this max contract because he doesn't have the offense at the same skill set. So if you want to mock him for that, for not having the offense of a player of a max contract, totally fine. Mocking his defense is outrageous. This guy is the best or second best defensive player in the league, depending on where you view Victor Wembanyama right now, in terms of the way that he impacts games. And I think some of this also stems from, which this is where I get a little irritated. But we've been doing this thing for 3 or 4 years now, where whenever the public gives credit to Nikola Jokic, there's always some sort of commentary associated with it. Like, well, Nikola Jokic, yeah, he might be the best player in the league, but Joel Embiid's the best two-way big in the league because Joel Embiid is a better defender than Nikola Jokic, which I think is largely inarguable. Like Joel is a very, very good defender when he's fully healthy. But what we're missing, and the reason that we've all been saying at Establish the Run for the last 3 or 4 years, is it's not close between these two players, is because of how dominant offensively Nikola Jokic is. And that's what makes it like not a competition between Nikola and the rest of the league in terms of the best player in the league. And you're seeing it put on display here in the playoffs. In the playoffs, you can see 2 on the ball, limited other teammate help that can slow down guys like Anthony Edwards. Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that hasn't been able to slow those guys down generally. Luka's been battling through injuries. That slowed him down a little bit. Jalen Brunson's elevating himself offensively into that group as well. But 3 years now of playoff runs, people trying to scheme specifically to neutralize or limit the damage that Nikola Jokic can do, and nobody's got answers, really. So, like, at some point, you just got to realize there are no answers. There are no answers to this test. Everybody wants to throw somebody out there that, just do this to Jokic, just double him. There's no answers. He's the best player in the world. And when we start attacking Rudy Gobert, I think you're taking away from an epic offensive performance. And I just don't think we did this in other generations with the other best players. Like when LeBron had massive games in the finals and whatnot, it wasn't an inflection on Andre Iguodala's defensive talent. No, it was like LeBron's incredible. LeBron's amazing. And maybe because it's Rudy Gobert, maybe because it's Nikola Jokic, and people have a hard time. They're still having a hard time rationalizing that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. And they're like, oh, it's because Rudy's not that good. That's why Nikola Jokic is putting up these big lines. And I'm sick of it, man. This guy's the best player in the world. MVP 3 times, finals MVP last year, led his team to the finals, is pulling his team up from a 2-0 deficit that, yes, in part because of his poor play, they were in that hole, but is doing all of the things you want from all-time greats. All of the things. Nikola, that third quarter, that's the closest I have felt to 2 players in my life that I've felt where they are going, and I'm like, oh, no, they're not going to let their team lose this game. Michael Jordan. I had that feeling all the time with MJ growing up. Maybe it's because I was a kid. Maybe it's because of MJ. But I had that feeling all the time. I was just like, we were down 10 in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes to go. It's like, MJ's not going to let this happen. LeBron, at times, I had that feeling with. Now, LeBron's career waned with that. Like sometimes he's a little bit more passive. But towards the end of his career, or towards the middle peak of his career, that's how I felt with LeBron as well, where it's like, this guy's about to do something where when I was rooting for the Bulls with Derrick Rose, it's like, I know we feel like we're in this game. We're not in this game because that dude over there, he's going to end it at some point soon. I'm just waiting to see how he's going to end it. That's how I feel with Nikola Jokic right now.
So I was rewatching, right? Going back to the offense-defense thing. So the spin moves and all that stuff that Joker was doing, it reminded me of soccer, like penalty kicks. Like if you're a goaltender, like you got to guess what he's going to do, like because chances are they're going to make the shot. Like that's how dominant he is. It's like they could take the best goalie in the world, and they're even against like good pros, they're still going to get scored on. So I don't know. I'm with you there. And then one other note I wanted to mention, like I was writing up his matchups for this, and the diversity of scoring plays is insane. So he's a big man. He had 0 roll man points, 4 transition points, 7 pick and roll handler points, 7 isolation points, 3 on cuts, 6 on handoff plays, a center, and then the 13 post up plays. That's when Gobert gets killed. That's where the clips are going around. So I mean, sure, Gobert's post defense was a problem. It's a problem against everyone. So I'm with you. It's like you said, just deal with it, man. Like people can't rationalize it the right way. This is clearly the most dominant big man maybe ever. Certainly to this point in his career, I think he's on track to do that. So yeah, I think we can kind of move on there. I want to talk about the Minnesota offense. We mentioned it
Yes.
at the top. Mike Conley being out was a big, big loss, and I'm convinced myself that the Nuggets woke up thinking they weren't going to trap that heavy. And then they found out Mike Conley was hurt. Like, okay, we got to implement this. And they kind of like changed their game plan, and it worked in spades. And it just absolutely neutered the offense of the Wolves. But yeah, Mike Conley, I don't like that he got downgraded from Achilles soreness to a soleus strain. That's concerning. We've seen this soleus injury pop up all the time. I know In Street Clothes had mentioned it's a 16-day injury. Certainly the severity is not as bad. We saw KP like limp off the court mid game, Giannis limp off the court mid game. Conley was kind of late in the game, so but not great. So yeah, go ahead on Conley and his impact and how it affects Ant on offense.
It's massive. And we've talked throughout the playoffs about the impact of injuries, and ultimately, like, the NBA champion at the end of the year usually is one of the team that's the most healthiest. We were talking about that in the context of the Wolves and how they looked, and they looked really good, really healthy. I think you saw their offense short circuit a little bit without Mike Conley there. And I think you're seeing in the playoffs one of the themes that's emerging to me between what's going on in Game 5 of the Timberwolves series and what went on in Game 5 of the Thunder Maverick series is there's a distinct need for the ability to hit pull-up jumpers and off-the-dribble jumpers, off-the-dribble threes specifically. If you are just a catch-and-shoot three-point team in the play or catch-and-shoot three-point offense right now in the playoffs, generally teams can run you off the line, they can contest, they can give you really tough looks. But what you can't do when another team has two players that can hit off the dribble threes is you can't really hedge out and trap and double as much aggressively, because once the ball is swung to the other guy, it's not just catch and shoot. It's he can catch and shoot, he can dribble into a screen and get more space there. The ball can keep moving. And I think what you're seeing is these defenses are trying to catch up to the offenses that are so good. And one of the ways that they're able to do that is you need to have that versatility and being able to hit kind of off the dribble threes. And that's not Nickeil Alexander-Walker's game. That's obviously not Kyle Anderson's game. He doesn't really hit threes, period. And that's not Monty Morris's game either. Monty Morris's game is more kind of getting into the mid-range or trying to facilitate for others. So they really lost that aspect without Mike Conley, and it showed, as you alluded to. Denver was able to have much, much more aggressive defensive coverages on Anthony Edwards, cut off all the driving lanes, do some of the stuff that we saw Anthony Edwards struggle with in the regular season with Phoenix in terms of kind of the hedging in, showing arms, showing bodies at him, making him get the ball out of the hands, and then making their offense try to reset. And at times they would get catch and shoot looks that were good, but at times Denver would recover and you'd have to start the whole thing over. And now you're starting the whole thing over with late shot clock situations. And it's really, really difficult to get good looks in that situation. And so that's what it looked like to me. Was just, this was a game where all of the defensive attention was on Anthony Edwards. Two kind of bodies on him at most times, get the ball out of his hands, make other players beat you. And to Nickeil Alexander-Walker's credit, I mean, he shot 4 for 8 from 3. He played effectively in Game 5, but
everyone else missed their threes too.
Yeah, exactly. The rest of the team was 4 for 18 from 3. The offense lost rhythm, and that's the thing that we've seen, is that in games 1 and 2, that offense was in rhythm with a lot of pick and pop stuff. Denver was slow to recover, slow to get out and contest. Denver has not been slow to get out and contest. They've been really on it with the rotations of late, and they're just making life really, really difficult for Minnesota right now.
Two other things that stood out to me on kind of the whole. So we talked about Jokic's offense. Jokic's offense was so good that it helped their defense because he had 0 turnovers. They weren't running. The Wolves had 4 points in transition. That's their lowest they've had all year by a lot. It might be the lowest by any team all year. Like 4, that is insane. And then the other thing, Ant guarding Jamal, I thought was a mistake. I think if Chris Finch learned that, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna like they go into the game thinking Jamal's gonna guard him, but they didn't know they were gonna get trapped that heavy. They didn't trap him at all the game before. So I think going into it now, they're okay. We got to save energy because we saw this. We've seen this movie. We saw the Suns do it in Game 82 early in the series, and then really throughout the series they would do this defensive coverage. And guess what? Ant had enough energy to give the ball up, get it
Yep.
back, and keep doing it
Yep.
until he could go one on one on people.
Yep.
So I think they got to save the energy for him. I think those are two pretty. Well, I guess one's not an adjustment. Like, well, I guess it is an adjustment. Do you double Joker and just make him pass more? Maybe help that kind of get the turnover train going because I mean Joker's not going to turn the ball over in the post. The guy's handle's insanely tight. So like, do you take Ant off Jamal and do you double Joker? I think those are the two big questions Chris Finch has to figure out. How do you feel about it?
Well, if you're gonna double Jokic, you are committed to being in rotation most of the
Yep.
night, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're being in rotation the whole night is a lot of defensive
Mm-hmm.
energy exerted as well. So I do think this is a challenge, and Anthony Edwards, to his credit, has taken on this challenge in all the post game pressers and commentary as well, saying like, I'm 22, I'm young, I need to find the energy essentially. But what he's being asked to do is really an awful lot, like carry the
Mm-hmm.
load offensively, initiate the offense, try to create all the shots, guard the team's kind of most active perimeter player, and play 45 to 48 minutes. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's an awful lot for anybody to kind of handle. So yeah, I think you'll see. I think with Jokic, you can't do just one thing. You just got to keep mixing it up.
Yep.
You got to
Yep.
change mid game, whether you're bringing help, where the help is coming from. You got to change whether you're playing him one on one. You just got to keep giving as many different looks as possible, which is one of the things that it wears on teams. It wears on teams mentally because the more things you're trying to change, so it's like you give him the same look over and over, and he's going to solve that riddle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just going to be at his mercy of him solving that riddle. You give a bunch of different looks all the time, and you risk the mental lapses of what look are we giving him right now, and somebody's out of position and he picks that apart. And that's why this task is so impossible to deal with in terms of his
Mm-hmm.
skill set, because it's not just a physical, it's a mental dominance over his opponents that allows him to make it easy for everybody else out there. And so I think they got to keep mixing up their coverages, but that is a taxing mental burden to do that during the course of the game. And I think right now the big challenge is, as we alluded to going into Game 5, the Nuggets have taken Naz Reid out of this series so
Mm-hmm.
far. And the path back for Naz Reid to be in this series is he's got to make threes. But he's going to get abused on the defensive end. Maybe there's
Mm-hmm.
ways that they can send help there, but anytime Jokic gets Naz Reid on him, you want to talk about like people talking about Gobert struggling with Jokic. Gobert's making Jokic hit tough shots. If you look at the shots that Jokic hit over him, there's fadeaway floaters, there's contested threes, there's layups off the top of the backboard as he's like going out of bounds. There's all these tough contested shots. You look at the stuff Naz Reid is giving up to Jokic, it's at the rim. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like Jokic is just way too big, and he's just spinning off Reid and getting right to the rim. So they need to find a way that Naz Reid or Kyle Anderson can be effective in this series. And the Kyle Anderson pass feel a little bit tougher because offensively he's so limited. And Denver just is like, we'll throw Jokic on you and we'll just have Jokic sag back here and drop, not leave the paint. And Kyle Anderson, if you want to try to beat us with like dribble handoffs that we'll just switch, or if you want to actually shoot the ball, like good luck. But we're going to derail your offense by basically playing 5-on-4. And so Naz Reid is their option to potentially get
Mm-hmm.
back into this, but he's got to shoot the ball well. 0 for 3 from 3 last game. He was shooting the ball well in the first 2 games of the series. Him and Cat both were shooting it well from 3, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
difference maker. They need to get back to that. But defensively, yeah, I think they got to get Ant off Jamal. I think that would be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be saying like, look, if Jamal, the other thing about this is make Jamal Murray prove his calf is healthy to you.
Yeah.
Like if you have a weaker defender on Jamal Murray and you're forcing him to use all the possessions, at least make him prove it to you. I think we know what we're dealing with Jokic. I think at this point, you'd rather get beat by Murray than Jokic. And look, Murray is very capable of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen that plenty too. So there's not a lot of good options here for the Wolves, but I agree that they need to find ways to conserve energy for Anthony Edwards. And I think on the offensive side, they need to get shooting from Karl-Anthony Towns and Naz Reid. Those guys got to make their threes.
Yeah, and to stay on Cat here, I don't want to forget about talking about Aaron Gordon. So remind me if I forget.
Oh.
Do you use Cat as a screener more? I think that was an interesting thing I was thinking about when watching the game because they kept using Gobert as a screener to kind of for their spacing. Because if Gobert's
Yep.
not screening, he's just in the dunker, and this
Yep.
kind of makes your spacing kind of wonky. So, but then again, like at least getting the ball to Cat in the pocket, you get a little bit more playmaking. He's got that kind of shot there if he wants it. He does have a pretty good handle for a guard. We've seen that a little bit, some isolation stuff. I think it's obviously not like your pet play, but I don't know. I think they got to sprinkle in a little more of the Cat pick and pop stuff, just something different to kind of keep the Nuggets on their toes. The Nuggets kind of knew what was coming. I feel like. Do you think they mix in
Yeah.
Cat a little bit more that way?
Well, this is where there are some offensive limitations, and this is
Mm-hmm.
where if you want to pick apart some of the issues with Rudy Gobert, who
Yep.
was really good offensively in Game 5, 7 for 7 from the field, 4 for 7 from the line, 18 points, 11 boards, team best -2 in his 40 minutes on the court. Again, he was pretty good in Game 5,
Mm-hmm.
but offensively they have limitations when Rudy Gobert is out there. And the problem is they have offensive limitations when Rudy Gobert is out there, and they have defensive limitations when Naz Reid is out there, and they have offensive limitations when Kyle Anderson's out there. So, how do you want to try to win the game? Do you want to try to win the game by your defense being good enough against Denver?
Mm-hmm.
That worked really well in games 1 and 2. That's
Mm-hmm.
been kind of the calling card for Minnesota all year. I think that's the way they're going to try to win the game. But I think ultimately, if you're not unable to slow down Jamal Murray and you're unable to slow down Jokic, I think one of the solutions is potentially to get Rudy Gobert off the floor and get into these Karl Anthony Towns and Naz
Mm-hmm.
Reid situations where you have more space for Anthony Edwards, where you have more 3-point shooting on the floor to potentially ratchet up that variance that you need when you're playing as an underdog. And so that's one of the things that I'm interested in seeing if they're playing from behind more. I'm interested in seeing if we can get the problem is, the Nas lineups have not worked well since Game 2, but those are the lineups that, from an offensive perspective, have the most upside, and that's when you can use those guys as screeners and you have versatility to how they're screening because they can roll or they can pop. Right now, with Gobert on the floor, they can only pop, and so even if you're using them as a screener, you either get the pop and you get a shot over somebody, or maybe you get a switch and then you'll see them like kind of dribble out and try to get a post up with the switch down, and Cap will try to attack there. But that all takes time and out of flow of the offense. And so I thought the best they looked was in Game 2 with Rudy Gobert off the floor. I don't think it's an indictment on how Rudy Gobert plays. I think it's just the spacing that is created by having Cat and Naz Reid both out there.
Yeah, and had better drive game. That was his best like drive game stats without, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I always go back
Yep.
to that quote earlier a couple years ago when he said he couldn't dunk the ball because the lane was so clogged when that trade was just made. So yeah, Aaron Gordon. Oh my God, man. I don't. We went into the series. You and me both were like, this isn't going to be a big Aaron Gordon series. Perhaps the most wrong I've ever been about a player. I mean, my God. Like third best player in the series by a ton. You could arguably say second. Like he's been back bit, man. Like I'm talking like he's closer to Ant than he is to like someone behind him. That's how impactful his game has been with the defense, with the offense. Even I mean, I'm just blown away at how good he's been, man. Just wanted to give a hat tip to Aaron Gordon.
The guy's shooting 66% from the field, 61% from three, 75% from the line in this series.
Yeah.
While playing all-world defense on whoever is in front of him, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, whoever it is. I mean, this is an unbelievable performance from Aaron Gordon. And man, I tweet about this, but I'm just so happy that Gordon and Jokic found each other because there's not a better pairing for each other than those. I mean, Aaron Gordon is the perfect player next to Nikola Jokic. Absolutely perfect player. Covers up so many of Nikola's defensive limitations in terms of rim protection, in terms of agility, in terms of fast break defense, in terms of all these different things, in terms of stopping point of attack defense and stopping the ball from getting to the rim. All of these things that Aaron Gordon brings are such a blessing for Nikola Jokic in terms of hiding some of his few limitations that there are. And then Aaron Gordon, what are his limitations? Historically, it's been his ability to shoot and primarily space the floor and create good offenses around a player like that. Well, when you've got the best offensive player in the world who creates space everywhere for everybody through his passing and shooting ability, Aaron Gordon now is unlocked in a way that we've never seen before these last 3 years with Denver. And so it's just such a beautiful pairing of basketball synergies that I'm just so glad we've able to see it, because when Aaron Gordon was drafted fourth overall by the Orlando Magic, this is what we thought was possible. We thought this athletic freak who could also bring the ball up in ball handle and was huge for his positional size was going to be able to be a player that impacted the game in so many different ways. It was like juiced up Andre Iguodala. Not literally. I'm not accusing Aaron Gordon of taking steroids, but bigger Andre Iguodala. That was the idea. We are seeing that play out in spades the last 3 years with Denver, and it's just so it. And again, I don't think Jokic becomes this version of Jokic without playing next to Aaron Gordon. I think Aaron Gordon's unlocking a lot of stuff for him. So just a beautiful basketball synergy between those two.
Yeah, it's just one other thing on Gordon too, and we don't like. Everyone was so shocked by the bringing the ball up stuff. I'm gonna take you back to March 2021. Okay, so I pulled some tweets that I just looked at. Right, so the Orlando Magic, coached by Steve Clifford, they had Michael Carter Williams as a point guard, and he couldn't play. Steve Clifford made Aaron Gordon the backup point guard. Like he can handle, man, and he wanted to be a point guard. He talked a lot about that earlier coming up, so he can handle, man. We talk a lot about. I talked about it with Max Strus yesterday. Like just because you've seen these guys play some way for a year, couple months, whatever, they're still pretty damn good at a lot of basketball things that we don't see them do. So just wanted to shout out the well-roundedness to Aaron Gordon's game that he doesn't need to do. He doesn't need to do that. So, but yeah, any other thoughts here? It looks like, do you think Denver's got this tonight, or any of the other players? I think we mostly hit everyone.
So
KCP
I want to
really
say,
good. I'm gonna shout him out quick.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say is like, I thought that was the perfect Jokic performance. The Wolves were without Mike Conley. Anthony Edwards was facing some of the most challenging defensive attention that he's faced all year. And the Timberwolves were down 6 going into the second half. And even in Jokic's incredible third quarter, right, where he just like makes almost every shot, and the Nuggets score 38 points. Wolves scored 30 in that point in that quarter. If any of those margins are a little bit down, the Wolves are right in this, despite not having their best A game. The Wolves are really, really freaking good. And like, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we've seen Aaron Gordon play about as perfect basketball as he could play. Nikola Jokic play about as perfect basketball as he can play. And the Nuggets are not like blowing the doors off Minnesota in these games. They're pulling away and like holding on. They're holding to these, like they're getting these 10-point leads and then they're grinding through and holding them on. And so if we get a game where Minnesota has their role players play their perfect games, Minnesota's still very live in the series. Minnesota's very, very good. So like, I want to give credit to the Nuggets for playing like champions, for playing at this top level that Minnesota is bringing out in them. And I also want to recognize that if they bring it down a notch, Minnesota is there to give them hell. And we saw that in games 1 and 2. So I think Denver is obviously, they just got to win one of 2 games. Jokic seems to have figured out how to attack. This injury to Mike Conley is a really big deal. Really, really big deal. All of those things are working heavily against Minnesota. So yes, I think Denver is most likely to advance, and wouldn't be surprised if it happens tonight in Game 6. But I just want to highlight that they're not far away. It's not like the first 2 games were a fluke, and games 3, 4, and 5 are representative of like, if you take away those games and let's say Denver wins Game 6, Denver would have swept the Wolves. That's not what's happening here. No. Like I just want to be very clear. The Wolves are very, very, very good. And if Denver lowers the level at all from this absolute champion level, Minnesota is going to be right there to take advantage. So I don't think the series is over by any means, but obviously Denver's in great position now.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty much with you there. So let's move to the other Western Conference game. Just a massive win from the Mavericks. And again, where people who don't follow the NBA closely are like, oh yeah, Luka Doncic, they're great offense. No, their defense has been suffocating, and the transition point that I just made was true for the Thunder. They had their fewest points in transition last night. They couldn't make their jumpers. That was such a killer. As you know, we were sweating some SGA assists that we thankfully got. But yeah, I mean, Dallas's defense has been arguably the best defensive unit in the last like 4 or 5 games, I'd say. What have you been seeing from? And then Luka being healthy, I think that's kind of the headline. But what do you think about the Dallas win last night?
It's just a continuation of what I think we've seen this series. Outside of the one thing that I thought was different last night compared to the rest of the series is Luka was phenomenal last night and looked a little bit more comfortable. I know they mentioned in the post game interview, like, you seem to be focused on just the basketball side of things, not arguing with refs and different things. He was really locked in, and he was fantastic last night. Played really, really well in that game in an efficient way that we haven't seen him play throughout this series. So 31, 10, and 11 on 12 of 22. He was fantastic. But that's what's different from the rest of the series so far. And if Luka plays that way, Dallas, I think, closes things out. What has been the same throughout much of the series is the discrepancy and the disparity between the others' three-point shooting. On Dallas' side of the equation in this series, you've got Dallas as a whole now shooting 38% from three, and you've got OKC shooting 33% from three. The guys who have taken the most volume from three in this series for Dallas that are like the other players, PJ Washington 47%, Josh Green 37.5%. He's taken 24 threes in the series. Derrick Jones Jr. struggled at 28%, and Tim Hardaway Jr. 35%. This other players for Oklahoma City in the series from 3-point range. Kason shot 40%, 6 for 15. That's been great. Isaiah Joe 38%. But then you get into Giddey 21%, Aaron Wiggins 30%, Lou Dort 32%, Chet Holmgren 25%, J Dub 31%. The lack of secondary scoring from Oklahoma City in this series has been alarming. And we are big, big J-Dub fans. We have been on the J-Dub bandwagon for a while. This has been kind of a haunting series for J-Dub. He has not looked aggressive. He has not looked comfortable. Some of the stuff we saw his game develop during the course of this second season in terms of the off-the-dribble threes just aren't even there. He's not even taking them. He's not even confident in taking them. He's got those looks if he wants them because they're shading help towards Shea. But this is becoming a series that is largely being determined by better three-point shooting from the others. And I do think the quality of looks that Dallas is getting is much better than the quality of looks OKC is getting. I think some of that is OKC's scheme, which I think Mark Dagnall, I really think you need to make some adjustments on the defensive scheme. I get it that this got you to the number one seed in the West, but at some point you got to stop giving up wide open corner threes. Dallas is making you pay on those pretty consistently. And on Dallas' side, I do think it's a credit to Dallas' defense being able to recover. And there's so much effort from these guys defensively. And Derrick Jones Jr. is doing a really good job staying in front of Shea, even though Shea's had a fairly comfortable series. But they're pinching everything in because they don't have any trust in Oklahoma City to, once they catch the ball, and you'll see this all the time, basically Lou Dort threes right now are if he's able to catch and shoot in rhythm or if he's able to catch and somebody flies by. It's never, there's no threes that OKC is creating that are catch, the contest comes, dribble around a screen and shoot a off the dribble three. That's not happening. The only threes that are happening from Shea are the step backs that he's able to hit, which he's been great at. Shea's been awesome, 47% in the series from three. No complaints about Shea, but we're not seeing it from J-Dub. Chet's not hitting his threes. And so Dallas is able to pinch everything in and then just basically say, like, we're going to show out and recover. We're going to keep Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively absolutely nailed down in the paint. So Chet can't have his challenge the contest with the dribble drive and attack the rim. We're not going to let Chet do that. And we're just going to stay here locked in, and you go shoot over our contests from three. And right now, Dallas is working really hard defensively to contest those, and OKC's not making shots.
And to your point on the corner threes, so the last game, Dallas's shot volume, 27% of their shots were corner threes. To give you an idea how nuts that number is, the league leaders on offense were 12%. So like double and then some for how high that shot frequency is. And that was the thing. Like, spot up plays 1.25. The other game two, I think it was, they were like 1.45 or something. Like the games they're losing is because they're getting killed on catch and shoot stuff. So I mean, you try to live and die by it. It worked in the season, like you said. It's not working, man. Like that's the reason why you lost 2 games. Besides PJ Washington, so like we mentioned, Kyrie's been a ghost this series. Luka's been hurt for what 80% of the series, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit. I don't think he looked healthy. There was an interesting report from Jared Greenberg to start. They said they would shut him down for 2 weeks. It was the regular season, and then Luka said he felt great after the game because they won. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I thought the Giddy adjustment was overdue. Maybe it should have happened sooner. I think you could. That's a whole nother thing. But I don't know. What do you think about starting Isaiah Joe? I think that's probably like, yeah, it's probably where you got to go. I think you just got to just lean into defense here. Do you think you would just start
They
Wiggins
need
or Jason?
I I think they'll start Isaiah Joe. I think they need shooting. I think they need some
Yeah.
semblance of shooting. Obviously, it didn't work great. Isaiah Joe was 2 for 8 in this game from three,
Mhm.
but generally, like I said, he shot 38% in the series. So generally, he shot well. I think they need the shooting. They need the spacing and help offensively. I think honestly, the defensive stuff, just change the freaking scheme. Like,
Yeah.
just adjust. Stop allowing the corner threes. Just stop
Mhm.
allowing corner threes. If you get beat in the mid range game, or get beat by Luka being able to take the ball to the basket, or Kyrie being able to take the ball to the basket,
Mhm.
at least you're getting beat in a different way. And I get the idea that, like, okay, over a 7 game series, we just don't believe these other guys are going to keep shooting, you know, 35 to 45% from three. But
Mhm.
when they're wide open corner threes, I think they
Mhm.
probably are.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
are.
it's different. It's different in the regular season when some of the guys out there are not playoff caliber offensive players, and you're giving up those threes, and it works. Like, it's different. But in the in the playoffs, especially you get deeper into the playoffs, you got to be able to adjust. And I think Mark Dagnall is a fantastic coach, very deserving of his Coach of the Year honors. But I do not think he's coached a very good series here. And I think the inability to show different defensive concepts at Dallas has allowed Dallas to be so comfortable. I mean, it looks relatively routine each time that I see Luka Doncic drive into the middle, and he is immediately looking to the corner. He's looking at the corner every time as his first outlet, and he's not having to he's not having to adjust his eyesight. It's just like, okay, throw it out to the corner. Here's a wide open three. We'll take that.
Mhm.
Kyrie, same thing. It's drive to the middle. Kyrie is looking so much that he's not even looking for a shot, because he's literally just looking to drive to the middle
Yep.
and throw a cross court pass to the corner three pretty much every time.
Mhm.
And like, I just think NBA offenses are too good at this level to show just one look throughout
Mhm.
a whole series. And that's basically what I've seen from OKC.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more to that, I mentioned that 27% from the last game. Not the last game. That 12% is a very high number. So going backwards, the 27, 18%, 15%, and 20%. Like this is a clear signal they're giving that up. And their unguarded, guarded stuff, I can't split it by the corner, but like it's like neck and neck where a lot of the OKC games are like highly guarded and then not guarded.
Yep.
For instance, last night, OKC's guarded catch and shoot stuff was 23 guarded, 12 unguarded. And then on the other side, it was 14-13 for the Mavs. So yeah, just insanely good looks here. They got to fix that. Yeah, maybe let Kyrie try to beat you. I guess
Yeah.
it sounds insane,
Yeah.
but
I also think, like, you know, generally generally Luka's having a harder time getting the line, because he physically, I think, is struggling to, like, initiate contact, to do all the things he does to normally get to the line. Make them make tough twos. Make them get to the line. Make them prove that they can beat you this other way. It's been very clear that they're very comfortable beating you by just taking. I mean, the post game commentary from PJ Washington, or halftime interviews, where he's like, "They're not guarding us,
mhm.
so it's our job to make threes when they're not guarding us." This is it's just really frustrating as somebody who, I didn't financially back the Thunder in this one. I was torn on where to go on this, and picked the Thunder in 7, but I feel like the Thunder have the horses to be able to do this.
Mhm.
But I feel like a combination of, A, they're not shooting the ball well, which is really a big, I'm sure, the thing Dagnall will hang his hat on. But
Mhm.
B, I think the shot disparity is largely influenced by shot quality in this case.
Mhm.
And I think they need to adjust the defensive scheme and trust their guys one on one. Like, I think Lou Dort one on one against Luka will be fine. You don't need to pinch in. I think he'll be totally fine. And against Kyrie, let J-Dub or Aaron Wiggins, like let them handle that matchup and go one-on-one. Just stop helping off of the corner so aggressively.
And I'm looking at synergies. They have a shot quality stat. So like high 80th percentile or better. Dallas has won that every game by like a lot. Some games it's like a little bit
Yeah.
close, but like the last couple, it's like a huge
Yeah.
gap. The shot
Yeah.
quality is this would be a shot quality sweep. Zach loves the shot quality Olympic stuff. But yeah, so I don't know. I think Dallas probably has this. I don't know. I think Dallas at home is going to be tough to beat. So I think I'm taking my first money L. I'm not too, but this is my smallest investment here, but not feeling good.
Yeah, I don't feel great about it either. I did not make a financial investment, but this would be the first series loss for me on the card if OKC is unable to come through here. Yeah, and credit to Dallas. Their role players have really stepped up in a big way and outplayed the OKC role players. And really, in a series where both Kyrie Irving and Jalen Williams have been really underwhelming, PJ Washington absolutely destroying Chet Holmgren has largely been the difference in the series.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So let's switch to the East. We're going to put a pin in the Boston stuff. We never really wanted to talk about it anyways. But let's talk about New York. I mean, we got to talk about the big adjustment. Deuce McBride starts, and that lineup was humming. It's so weird. Like you think, oh, they're going to go small. They're going to play faster. No, like this game played pretty slow because they were able to get back and kind of play more one-on-one defense to slow kind of run the shot clock down a little bit on the Pacers. And then, hey, and Carlisle said it, and anyone who saw it, like, oh, they're going to play small. That means you're going to get killed on the boards. No. Isaiah Hartenstein goes for 12 offensive rebounds. They had a 50.0 offensive rebound rate. They split that. Just an incredible effort. Rick Carlisle said it was a, quote, hard lesson, very embarrassing. And, yeah, just classic, we want it more than you do situation here. But and then Brunson obviously looks fantastic. So I think those are the two headlines here. What do you want to take away from, or just a absolute? It's to get blown out. We talked about it. First quarter of the Sunday game, we're like, oh, this game's over. I'm going to start writing. You're like, I'm going to go take a break. To that, it's just what a turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, it was evident to me in the first few minutes of that game that Jalen Brunson looked like he was getting to his spots in a way that he was unable to get to his spots since the beginning of game two. So like I was like, ooh, okay. Because I said on the last pod, if they either had a fully healthy Jalen Brunson or they had OG Anunoby with a partially healthy Jalen Brunson, I'd feel very comfortable with the Knicks through the rest of the way. But I didn't think they had either of those things. And so we saw that. The adjustment also helped a bunch. You nailed it in terms of what that adjustment did for them, allowing them to get back defensively, slow the pace of the game, even though you're playing smaller. Allowed them also to. It's interesting how these matchups work, right? Like Deuce has really struggled with TJ McConnell in this series, but he's doing a great job on Tyrese Halliburton, and he really shut off the water for Tyrese Halliburton. And you would think like Deuce McBride's not that big, so like TJ McConnell would be a better matchup for him. But no, like for whatever reason, he's doing a really, really good job on Tyrese Halliburton. That shut off the water there. They also used Deuce as a screener a bunch, which I thought was really interesting, allowed Jalen Brunson to kind of pick his matchups out there. And again, what we said before, when Jalen Brunson is fully healthy, Nembhard doesn't have the size to guard him, and Nesmith doesn't have the quickness or the footwork to guard him. And so there's just no options out there when Jalen Brunson is fully healthy for Indiana. So I thought Indiana obviously didn't play with any sort of urgency or energy that we saw from them in game 4. Isaiah Hartenstein getting 12 offensive rebounds is completely embarrassing. He almost out-rebounded your entire team. So like obviously it's a combination of a number of things that led to this blowout. But I thought New York made nice adjustments. I thought Jalen Brunson looked a lot healthier. I thought they played with a lot more energy at home at the Garden, which I expected them to be able to do. And Indiana, the challenge for them is like second game of the series, both happen to be in MSG. The Tyrese Halliburton was like, after the game, I need to be more aggressive. And it's like, dude, you kind of need to be more aggressive like every game. Like that's the thing. You guys don't have the other guy that's going to be aggressive for you. You got to do that. And so will he be able to do that against Deuce McBride, who I said had been a turnstile against TJ McConnell, but has been great against Tyrese Halliburton in this series? Will he be able to do that against Deuce McBride? He's had his number. And then Rick Carlisle, where is TJ McConnell? TJ McConnell has been like the energy, the game changer in this series, and TJ McConnell only played 19 minutes. It was like his series low in minutes, basically. So it's, to me, it was a number of weird things. Like I don't understand why Carlisle wasn't going to TJ McConnell more, given They had a clear lack of energy, given TJ McConnell is clearly a source of energy for this team with the way that he plays, given that he's defended Brunson best. Brunson was cooking Nembhard and Nesmith. Like, I don't know why TJ McConnell is not on the floor in the game. So we'll see if the energy turns dramatically in a return to Indy on Friday. My expectation is that Indy will play with a lot better energy in Game 6. But yeah, that Knicks performance was dominant, and in a game, and a lot of Knicks fans have been like, we can't blow anybody out, we're not deep enough, so on and so forth. They blew out Indiana, 30-point win.
Yeah, blew them out with the offensive rebound. I mean, that was crazy, man. Like this offensive and that's offensive rebounding's what won them 3 games, at least 2. Like game 1
Yep.
against the Sixers, this one for sure.
Yep.
I mean, they won for other, but like that's like the main like. I think then one of the other games too. Like I think maybe even 4. Like the fact that their offensive rebounding when they're losing all their front court depth like this is just pretty insane to me.
I mean, it's clearly their second best offensive skill. Their first is Jalen Brunson, right? Jalen Brunson is number 1 in terms of their offense. The number 2 thing, if you told me like, what's the number 2 thing the Knicks are going to do to generate offense, I would say offensive rebound. Like that's clearly their number 2 biggest strength as a team right now.
Yep. And then I don't really have too much to say, honestly. Like I think Alec Burks there's a shout out. He's been great. Plenty left in the tank according to Tom Thibodeau. Precious was fine. I thought he did better. I think him as a center kind of made sense. Give Hartenstein some breathers. Give him the energy he needed to kind of do that. DiVincenzo, a bit of a rough game. We talked about this a little bit. How the Nembhard adjustment I thought would make that a little bit harder on him. I don't know. It's kind of straightforward here. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add. On Halliburton. Miles Turner was really good. Their defensive switch, I think, really helped him get going. And then, McConnell. I don't really have too much to say. I guess the thing I wanted to say is, can the Knicks close this out in Indy? Indy hasn't lost at home since the 18th of March. They've been just cruising at home here. So, do you think that the Knicks could take care of business on the road?
With a healthy Jalen Brunson, it's absolutely possible. With some of these adjustments that they made, I think they're lining up better. But I do think a big disparity in that game was just energy, and I think that's a lot influenced by the home crowd for both of these teams. So I'm expecting Knicks in 7. I wouldn't be surprised by Knicks in 6. I would love Knicks in 6 for some of our -1.5s to still hold up. But that's my expectation right now. The question mark for me is, can Tyrese Halliburton play with energy and solve Deuce McBride? Because right now, like we talked about, they couldn't stop the ball. Deuce McBride stopped the ball, and then Rick Carlisle stopped the ball by TJ McConnell being on the bench. Because the 2 guys who've been living in the paint the whole series have been Halliburton and McConnell. And Deuce was good enough at staying in front of Halliburton that he kept him out of the paint, kept them out of rotation, kept them out of giving up those open threes. You mentioned that getting Precious off the floor would help the rotations in defensive coverages. That helped a bunch just in terms of when they did have to rotate. They had a much more speed and athleticism out there. They didn't have Precious making some of the scheme mistakes. Precious being a 5 allowed him to play really effectively in the scheme and much more comfortably than he was playing at the 4. So all those things worked out really well. But if we get back to Halliburton able to use his size to get to the paint on Deuce McBride, or McConnell able to use his speed, because I still don't know who's guarding McConnell out there. If you've got Deuce on Halliburton, I guess that's DiVincenzo. I don't know if DiVincenzo can stay in front of McConnell. And I don't know if that will work, but ultimately Indiana has lived in the paint this series, and they've lived on getting into the paint and getting the Knicks in rotation. The Knicks have by playing Deuce, they have 2 better ways to stop that from happening. 1, Deuce limiting Halliburton, and 2, being better in rotation by having more athleticism out there in rotation. But ultimately, like if I'm Rick Carlisle, I've got to get more TJ McConnell. It's like the SNL skit. I need more McConnell. I need more cowbell, and I need more McConnell. That's what I'd be thinking if I was Rick Carlisle on the Pacers right now.
For sure. And one more thing to go back to we're playing small, we should give this up. The Knicks had their best rim defense of the game. Like that was their best rim series. So I thought a great game of the series. And then the other thing that stood out from looking at like the play type stuff, which does make sense. They had more unguarded catch and shoot stuff in the last game than any game they've had, which makes total sense. So yeah, clearly good adjustment. I don't think there's anything that Carlisle could do from like a personnel standpoint besides play McConnell more. They just gotta have energy, man. You can't give up 20 offensive rebounds. So yeah, I always think home crowds are overrated. So, but like I said, you haven't lost since March 18th. Like that's hard to throw that out the window. So I don't know. I kind of think the Knicks close it out. Perhaps bias. But yeah, I don't know.
If
It sounded
if
like you agreed.
if the Pacers are able to get more McConnell on the floor, you had floated before that maybe it comes at the expense of Neesmith. I think that's looking
Mhm.
even more likely with Jalen Brunson looking healthier and
Yep.
able to get to his spots more, and with Nembhard doing a good job on DiVincenzo. I think that's like looking even more likelier. And it's
Yeah.
very clear that Indy needs to play as fast as possible, right? So, like,
Mhm.
not that Neesmith plays significantly slower than Nembhard, but it's just another ball handler out there to
Mhm.
push with Nembhard,
Mhm.
McConnell, and Halliburton. So I'm thinking we might see Indiana try to get this game smaller and quicker ultimately, and
Mhm.
try to tire New York out.
I mean, yeah, they're running 9 guys compared to like basically 6 on the other end. I guess you could say 7 with Brooks and all those guys. So yeah, all right, that's gonna do it. Next time we talk to you guys, it's gonna be this the conference finals here. Any other thoughts or anything you didn't want to get anything you want to get off your chest here to close out?
No, I'm just really excited. The basketball turned out great in this round. The Nuggets Wolves series has been everything that I kind of hoped it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City and Dallas, I wish we would have seen a little bit better performances from J Dub and Kyrie, but honestly, like a six game, maybe 7 game series there, I'm really happy with. This Knicks Indiana series has been super fun. This Knicks team is just super fun to root for in terms of like how hard they play. Indiana's created great home environments. Like the crowd's been super, super into it and really, really fun. The Boston Cleveland series was just the drag on the playoffs,
Yeah.
and hopefully we get more competitive Eastern Conference Finals. But right now, whatever we get in the Western Conference Finals looks really, really appetizing. And as we look ahead, to a finals, it looks like we're going to get potentially one of those epic showdowns we've been looking at all year long that we've been thinking about with maybe a Denver Boston, um, something like that. So I'm really excited about the way the playoffs are shaken out. If you're interested in supporting any of our content, the best way to do so is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find this video established run NBA on YouTube. We're 40 subscribers short of getting to our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season. We've got just a few weeks left to do it. Would love your support in helping us reach our goal and keeping our management team happy here with Mike and I. So make sure to click that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes, please consider leaving a rating and review, as that helps get the podcast in front of more people. And that is our goal, is to grow this audience and help continue to elevate our voices in the NBA arena and space. So if you're interested in any of our premium content, you can check out establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for any of our premium DFS content. Mike Gallagher's matchup columns, our live shows breaking down the slates. I think we've been really on it, had a lot of subscribers
Mhm.
having really big wins, so it's been really fun there. You can check out any of our packages there. And yeah, appreciate all the support. Really looking forward to getting into these conference finals and the end of this round too, which has been great.
Should be fun. Maybe Boston will get a healthy and a challenge in the next round. So excited for that. And again, can't wait to talk conference finals next week. Appreciate everyone and catch you guys next time.